Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside the Issues, sponsored by the League of Women Voters Richfield. My name is Maureen Scalia and I will serve as the moderator. Tonight we are going to talk about two important programs serving families and children in our community. And my guests are Susan Rosenberg. Many of the people in Richfield know Susan from her time on the City Council. And to my far left, Tamara Weir. Tamara Weir?
Tamara.
Tamara, that's it.
Tamara Weir.
Tamara Weir, who is a lead person with the group Advocates for Intentional Living. And as the hour goes on, we'll find out more of how all that relates to Richfield and what goes on. But the subject really is, how can we make the experience of children growing up in our communities better for everyone? Before we start, I'd like to go through and just ask our guests to just tell a little bit about themselves. Sue?
Well, I'm a 40-year resident of Richfield, and I was on the Richfield City Council from 1992 to 2008. And while I was on there, I was very involved in human services. I was very involved with Cornerstone Advocacy Service and brought that feeling of human services to the council when I was elected. And I got involved with the Housing Committee in Richfield and the, we called it the Attainable Housing Committee, and then the Community Council, and worked really close with several people in trying to bring human services to the forefront of city business and to the community's business. And so that was one of my points when I was elected, that human services needs to be out there, because how are we going to make it as a city if we're not taking care of our people? And that means our kids, our seniors, and everybody in between. So that has always been a basic function of mine personal life, because now I work for Loaves and Fishes and work with the population that is in need, and really have empathy and really believe in that mission, as well as the mission of being helpful and kind and good, and looking for ways to help people succeed.
And Tamara?
Tamara.
Tamara, I'm having such a terrible time tonight. Tamara, tell me a little bit about yourself and what experiences you've had that would lead you to the really a human services group.
I started out in business. I started out in sales and management. And my favorite part of all of that was working with the individuals and helping them move up. And that led into communications, degree, a minor in communications and social work. And then I went on to get my master's degree at Adler Graduate School for licensed clinical counseling. Okay. And I'm just finishing up a project there. It was through my work with my internship for the Kids at Home program that was kind of laid the groundwork for launching Advocates for Intentional Living.
Okay, so you've always been a people's person, obviously, and then it grew from...
Always working for change, always looking at systems, broken systems, even in sales, looking for where product isn't being put out efficiently, or employees are lacking or experiencing some sort of stressor that they need to improve that so that we can get better work out of them. That was kind of my niche. So.
And then you went
and
on.
It's interesting, my degree's in business administration
Yeah.
with accounting. And not being satisfied in business, I had to go out on my volunteer side and look for the human services part. And when I graduated from college, I had thought about getting into sociology and psychology, but my dad said you had to be practical, so get into accounting. That's where your skills are, and I do have them, but for the volunteer side, human services has always been my way to go. And now working with Loaves and Fishes, I can combine them because I am there.
Yep, isn't that a sweet spot?
Administration.
Yeah,
I found it. Yeah.
And obviously, I'm sure you have some administrative duties, and some of
Plenty.
it also
Yeah.
is selling. I mean, you have to sell the program.
Well, and it makes sense to have that degree. I was at Normandale. That's where I began, and I was pursuing the business degree, or the groundwork for a business degree, and I became a peer mentor.
Oh,
And
okay.
absolutely, yeah, it was my aha moment. So I became a peer mentor program and an advocate of peer mentoring. It was a very successful program for several years, and I remember my mentors, or the teachers that, the instructors of the peer mentoring program, Doug, David, and Bev, and Jerry, and they were phenomenal at launching this program, and so it helped me find my passions and put them to good use.
Yes, in a caring environment.
And I was a facilitator for support groups at Cornerstone, which really was that people touching, but also educating themselves and learning and facilitating that process was really rewarding to me.
And we'll get into it because so much of your work is really teaching, mentoring people. So.
It is. It's about mentoring and advocacy, and that's exactly what my mentoring instructors did for me.
Well, let's start with the first one, Kids at Home.
Okay.
How did Richfield get involved with that? What led to the program itself? And take it away.
Okay.
Sue.
Well, Kids at Home is just a phenomenal program that was started in 2004. When I was on the city council, like I said, I was in the community council, I was on the housing committee, and I became acquainted with Lynette Chambers, who is a staff member who works in the Section 8. And at just about the same time, we had resources. We had a housing fund, and this fund came about as a result of a lot of our development and needing some. And when there wasn't housing, subsidized housing, then the development had to contribute to this fund, and so we had this fund of money, and so we got to kind of thinking about it, and Lynette got to working on it, and this Kids at Home program kind of evolved. And there were a couple things going on that we knew we wanted to help people, but we also wanted to keep kids in school in Richfield. So, because Lynette worked with Section 8, and she knew all the perimeters and how the rules for that, she developed this program that if a family had needed subsidized rent, and they had kids in school, either private school or public school, and they worked at least 28 hours a week. The parent worked 28 hours a week. They would be eligible to apply for this rent subsidy through Kids at Home. And presently they try to keep between 25 and 28 families on the program. And when I talked to Lynette recently, she said there were 23 families right now. When they opened up the program in February, they only had it open for 20 minutes before they had it filled. Because the word is out there that it is such a help to people, and that, for instance, like a family that has a 2-bedroom apartment, for the first couple of months they get $900 in subsidies for rent. And then it goes down to $500 after that, and then for the next year, it slowly decreases so that the family can be more and more on their feet. But it does help people at the beginning, and it also keeps kids in school, which is another plan for the program. And so it's just such a, I think it's a real feather in the cap for Richfield to have a program like this. And as Tamara was just telling me before, it's being repeated around the country. Other cities are picking this up, and if they have the funds and they have the leadership to push this through, then they're using this program, and it has, and I really want to, like I said, it's something that Richfield really should be proud of, because it is keeping our kids in school here in Richfield, and also it's helping these families so that they can provide a more stable and better life for their families.
So the interaction with the families, I mean, it's just not turning over money to them for rent.
No.
There's a lot more involved.
Well, and
can
Tamara
you
will get
describe
into
it?
that too. But one of the big components, and one of the things that we on the Housing Committee and Community Council, the most successful subsidized programs have the component of advocacy and referral with them. And you just don't leave a family high and dry. And I think we've all heard the story of Cabrini Green, the big housing project in Chicago, but what they did, they just put people into these homes, and then, there was nothing, there was no resource, there was no support, there was nothing to help them with finances, with education, with nutrition.
Jobs.
I mean, everything that a family needs to have some help with to be successful. And so we learned from that. I mean, I think a lot of the housing projects now and a lot of this more subsidized housing, they do have these resources. They've recognized that. Well, Lynette and all of us on the Housing Committee recognize that is a big component. And so that was also a big piece of this. And Tamara will talk to you about how her group kind of evolved from that. It started out with interns from Adler, and I think Adler was probably the only school that she partnered with. But they would do like a weekly or a bi-weekly, just get together with the family and talk about what's bothering, where their problems are. Are they having problems in school? Are they having problems getting medical help? Are they having problems with finances? Or whatever it was. But they were not left alone. And that was a real big part of this.
So Richfield is devoting money to this now. I mean,
They
there's
still
still
have
a
money.
housing
In fact, I
funds.
did verify that with the staff that yes, that funding is still there, and I think it's going to be there for the duration of the TIF program through Best Buy, and I think it's going to be there. There's a couple other developments that this money is going to help with that. And so there will be an end to it, but hopefully by then there might be another one to kind of pick it all up.
I think it's important too to understand that it's not just about these families getting money so that they have a place to live. It's really about giving them affordable housing so that they can get a leg up, so that they can start to take back some of that financial responsibility on their own with these supportive services that they're receiving. So it's not just not a gift. The parents that are the participants of the program, they are very hard workers. They are standing citizens. They really are. They're just in a tough spot. And so they need to be given the opportunity, and fortunately Richfield provides that, for them to see their way clear. And we just kind of help facilitate their way staying clear.
Well, and one important thing too is they cannot be on Section 8 and be a part of this.
Oh, really?
So they're not. I mean, and so
No.
and they do have to have the work background, and then if they would lose their job, there's some time when they can have the to find another job. And
So they're really walking, obviously, I mean, we all know that some jobs pay terribly, and it's really, you really can't buy decent food, you can't provide a decent house over your head in a safe neighborhood, and so on and so forth. So what we're doing is just really assisting working people.
Absolutely, and that's what Tamara, that's the point that I think we need to make, is that this is not a handout. This is a way to make a family become successful, be able to meet the challenges that we all meet, and kind of help them with this buffer of this rent subsidy. But it really is in the long run going to be the benefit for the whole society, to have families that have this feeling of accomplishment and being able to do what they need to do to make their family a success.
And I think what a lot of people, those of us who have are living in our single-family house, and we're not worried day-to-day existence. But there's study after study that shows if a child can stay 2 years in one place, or at least 1 year in one school, that's such a great help for his ability to really learn. I mean, if kids are being pulled out because mom and dad have to change apartments every 3-4 months due to a multitude of different
and I
things.
think we have to really understand too that there's a lot of success stories, and that since 2004, there's families that have gone on to home ownership, and they have gone on to, in careers that they maybe never thought that they could do because of the support that they got. So this is really it's a stellar program. I don't even know I am so proud of it. I'm proud of our staff. I'm proud of Lynette. I'm proud of what Tamara and her group has done. But the fact that we had the wherewithal to get this going, and that the city had the progressive idea that this is the best thing to do. So it was really good leadership. And so, for the small part that I had it, I'm really happy to say that.
Absolutely.
And I do want to talk about the awards.
Yes,
and
I think this is important.
This is really important. In 2008, the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials gave awards through the League of Cities, and they got state awards and national awards. In fact, Lynette was a finalist in several times about this, but she did get the national merit in 2008. And then in 2014, the Humphrey School of Public Affairs gave the award for this program through their local government innovation award. So it's not just us in the city. I mean, this program is being recognized so many ways because it is so multifaceted. It's not, as Tamara said, a handout or just a rent subsidy. It's so much more. It's giving people what they need to make their families, a success, and be able to manage life the way that they want.
Well, and I think too, some of us lucked out and had parents teaching us how to manage a household, how to look for resources, how to figure things out. But there's a lot of situations where people have not been given that.
I think our society has changed a lot in what we used to change. The roles were very different than they are now. And not that that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just different. And so different. We have to meet the times. And so we don't, women's roles aren't to stay at home and raise the children and go to home economics and sew your own clothes and bake your own baked good and can. Although some trends show that we're getting back to that a little bit. But our roles are very different. We don't play outside like we used to. When I remember as a kid, I would be, get home from school, we would eat and we'd go out and play and maybe get our homework done before we went out and played, but we wouldn't come in until the street lights came on. That was our signal to go home. And that was kind of the whole neighborhood. So we played with kids that we didn't even go to school with. We were just out there. We were part of a community. We learned how to be independent. We learned how to be part of a community or a neighborhood. I mean, independence. We learned a lot of things that kids are not having the opportunity to do that. Now we're a programmed people. We get programs. We go to programs. We're enrolled. We're enlisted. We're even after school programs, before school programs, and kids don't go to the mall and hang out by themselves anymore. They just...
Well, and there's also safety issues and cultural issues, things that we didn't face as growing up, and it's just, but that doesn't mean that that our families should not be taken seriously and also be given resources so that they could be.
And I think too there was something that we need to address differently now because, like you say, times have changed. But as you played in the neighborhood, maybe Mrs. Green 3 blocks down took a special interest in you and affirmed you and contributed to self-esteem and somehow maybe a little spark to go above and beyond. I mean, yes, your parents were probably saying things, but they were your parents. But if another person, a neighbor, a clergy, or anybody who kind of saw you and affirmed you, and because of the changes now, we need to find people to do that again.
Well, even if she yelled at you to get out of her yard, I mean, that, in a way,
still had an interaction.
That's right, and it was still a neighborhood. We just knew her as the mean lady, But that was it, because for 18 years I grew up in that same neighborhood.
Yes.
Until I went off to school, but that was my neighborhood. Those were the people that I knew, and that isn't the case anymore. We are much more transient, and that has nothing to do with poverty. That has
that's for all
affluent
kids.
People move all across the country, or the world for that matter, just as much as anybody else does. So that's not a financial disparity, I wouldn't say, but it is a difference in our culture today.
Difference, yeah.
It's just a
and
difference.
that lack of somebody to affirm. Well, let's get back to advocates for intentional living.
Sure.
How did that come about?
Well,
and I'm sure there's a story that's good.
Well, I was working with the city of Richfield with the Kids at Home program as an intern. So I was a graduate student at Adler, and I met with Miss Chambers, and she took me in as an intern, and I went into these families' homes. And my primary responsibility was that we teach financing, financial budgeting, if you will,
Budgeting.
and counseling. Just kind of put out fires. Well, one of the things, my biggest obstacle was that I was another person in a system coming in to tell them what to do differently, that they're not good enough, that whatever. And so I was met with all kinds of, blocks. They would do what they had to do because, they were being compliant, but we wouldn't get anywhere, and they weren't getting the services that they needed or the help. And I figured, so that very often the participants would put me to task. They would tell me that they needed something, right? I need a thing, like a ladder or a toaster or a thing. And normally I believe that when we're involved in those systems and you're a mental health person, that you're like, well, that's not really my job. I don't really do that. But let me see what I can figure out, which means nothing, right? Or maybe in some rare cases it does mean something. But I would figure out what it is that they were asking for, and I would show up with it. So if they wanted a toaster, I got a toaster and a box of Pop-Tarts and the toast. And that was how I established rapport. That is how I established trust. Because I wanted to go in and meet these people where they were at, not introduce them to my system and that we're going to do things differently from here on out because I know better. But it was like in a relational way, figuring out what it is that they needed and really figuring out a way to deliver that to them. And that was the premise of Advocates for Intentional Living. So the co-founder, John Mulkern, and I, he and I attended a parenting group when our children were babies. And we did that for a number of years, just as co-participants. And he recently finished up seminary. And one day he and I ran into each other and we were talking about all that we've done and accomplished and what do we do now. And the next conversation was how frustrated we are with the system. Mm-hmm. How frustrated we are with just being enough. I wanted to do more. I wanted to see change. I wanted to really help people find a difference that was significant to them, that they could live a more meaningful life. And so he and I decided, we battled out some ideas, and we came up with Advocates for Intentional Living and a work model, and that is exactly what we do. So as a partner to the City of Richfield now, we go in, we work with families, we figure out what it is that they need, and we deliver those services. So it's sort of like your one-stop shop, not going in, figuring out what they need, and then setting out for resources, right? Because people get lost in that process. There's like another, and the worst thing that I think is, while I know that we all mean to do well and we all want to make that difference, one of the things that I find very troubling when I go into these homes is we'll have a family with 4 kids, and one kid sees this professional over there for that thing, and this kid sees this professional for that thing, and then there's the school professionals, and then there's the guardian's professional that they see for this thing, and nobody's collaborating. Nobody's collaborating. And so when we work with a family, we work with the kids, we work with the adult in the home, we work with the schools. So we meet everybody at all of the different fronts, if you will, and we come together in a unified way that creates a change that makes sense to everybody. We're all on the same page, and we're all working for the same thing.
But you're doing it in a coordinated fashion rather than a disjointed.
That's right. That's right. Because what at the end of the 6-month period or whatever it is that I'm supposed to see you for 10 times, what do I get out of that other than just frustrating scheduled calendar? So the other thing that we do is we hold a parenting group on Thursday evenings at the Hope Church. We are not a religious organization, but we certainly understand that is a fundamental thing for a lot of people. So John is our in-house pastor, and the kids, school-age kids, love him. So he plans really fun trips, and he works with. He brings a great deal of humor, and just he can bring everybody to their knees in a room. In terms of, let's just let our hair down, let's let the fronts down, and let's just be real. Let's be real about what hurts, let's be real about what's working, let's be real about, even the professionals. So it's kind of fun to watch, but he's very effective that way. He's planning a big trip, Boundary Waters, this summer. So back to Kids at Home program and the Hope Church, that we have a parent share modeled after Marilyn Sharp's program at Mount Olivet. It's just parents sharing what's working, what's not working, what would be useful, and then I pipe in sometimes, or go to the board as they call it, with something a little bit more practical, and they take it or leave it. There's no judging. It's a very safe place for people to just come and share and take away with whatever it is that they like. We have childcare there, so the parents really like it because it's a little bit of a social hour, maybe similar to that of a knitting or a quilting club or something else that used to bring community together. And we're launching a new program. It's called Moms, Mentoring Other Mothers. So we have moms that have been there, done that, work one-on-one with moms that just, one of the things that I discovered working with these moms is they didn't need another professional coming in and telling them what to do. They just needed somebody to take them out for a cup of coffee, right? And just value who they were as a mother, as a woman, as an individual.
Well, it's so easy. I mean, to find yourself alone in, be it apartment building or a high rise or something, and everyone needs a group around them to support and affirm that they're okay. And yes, okay. I remember when my son did these things and drove me nuts. I almost pulled my hair out. And that kind of sharing, that's so important, that maybe we get it because there's a neighbor next door, 2 doors down. But for some people, that's just not a way they can find it. They need to do a group like that.
Well, it was community, right?
Exactly.
And how do we find community? How do we find community within families that are moving more frequently than we used to years ago? How do we find community in when I'm working all of these different hours and
Yeah,
my kids are, needing to be babysat or, going into these after school programs. So, I mean, there are challenges to community with just the moving in of itself. So, yeah, you're right. How do we do that? And we try to have community at Parent Share and then with this new Mentoring Other Mothers program. And and John is teaching the kids how to have community by going on these little excursions with them.
And I remember, actually, when I joined the League of Women Voters, many of the women, I was raising my family, I mean, they were in elementary and junior and senior high, and many of the women had already gone through all of that. And I learned, I mean, that's not why I joined LEAD, but it was really because these women have been through these. I mean, kids will be kids will be kids. So they were able to give me ideas, and essentially that's what you're doing there, is you're giving people practical ideas on how to get through the bumps. And
That's right. That's right. You know what? We already know that we have exceptional people, right? All people are exceptional, and they have purpose, right? And so sometimes we lose sight of that. Sometimes our financial stressors are so great that there's just no hope in sight. For somebody that's used to being in those sort of stressors, they just really don't know any different. But so the people that are in the Kids at Home program, we like to say that we're bringing some hope. Not because we're introducing something new, but we are going to just show you something just a little bit different. And then we can show you how so that it's a practical way. Not like it's another hoop to jump through or another staircase to climb. It's just a little tiny change. Change the way that we're thinking and feeling about something, or a change about how we're going about something.
And affirming that their value doesn't really matter how the kids turn out. They have value in them of themselves.
That's right. That's right. So. They absolutely do. And yeah, I mean, I love helping, just suggesting, I make little suggestions that, maybe with your skill set that you could have this kind of a job, something that people have never even thought of. Like,
never
really?
even thought of.
Yeah. We help them with their resume. Why? Because we're that one-stop shop. We have volunteers and the people that are experts in that area helping us. They help them, and we have other people, relationships in the business field that will give our participants that opportunity.
And give them a start.
Give them a start, yep.
And that's really what, in most cases, they need. Once they get there,
And you never know when it's going to hit. Because that would happen when I was facilitating a support group. Sometimes there was just a little spark of one little statement that just caused the whole avalanche of change that you just never really knew. But you were so thankful that situations being what they were at that moment did the job and changed. And what I was doing, I was working with women who had been victims of domestic violence, but just to hear an experience from another participant in the group would just be just that little piece of information that maybe just took them to the next step so that they could change their predicament or maybe just change their way of thinking about their situation. And you just never know. You never know when that's going to hit. And so that little piece can just be just that little inch, but it can lead to a whole lot of big changes that
it's
positive.
True. Change begets change, right? Just does. And so, when we see kids that are in alternative schools or where kids seem to be in trouble all of the time, we know that we have a discouraged kid.
A discouraged kid.
And so, what is the root of that discouragement? It reminds me of a time when it seems like you get into trouble and it just happens in threes.
Yes.
It's like, and you throw up your... Well, for a kid that doesn't know how to change that process or that rut, they just get stuck in it, and then you have a parent too that is feeling that kind of discouragement. So we like to say, we help parents become even better. We take really good parents and just become better parents. And with that, we just have better, encouraged kids. So we've seen kids leave our program going from alternative school into regular school, getting involved in chess club or debate club or swim club or what really becoming involved in that community.
And when a kid does well in something, it translates to the academics.
Well, sure.
Because
you have an encouraged kid, right?
Yes.
If you have an encouraged kid, now I can do. I can do and I can have and I can do it the way that gets me into less trouble but gives me more feel-good feelings and gives me positive results.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need to get involved in a gang to find a sense of belonging.
That's right.
I'm finding the sense of belonging in the chess, the basketball team, whatever, the play, whatever it is. They
Well, and more
see
importantly,
another path.
That's right. More importantly, when you're involved in that community, your chess club, your whatever, then you have more outs. So they're not feeling the pressure of being in the gang, right? Because now they have support at home, they have support in their community, they have support with their other friends, so that they're not even susceptible.
Yeah.
They're just not susceptible.
So, you want to share any of the stories in particular? Obviously, no names or anything, or even identifying.
Well, I think I kind of did. We had, that puts me in a precarious situation.
Okay. But you've seen the kids go back into the. Many of them even gone on to college after all of that, or is it too new?
I think it's too new for me to see them, off to college yet. But I have seen kids make very significant changes in their life, where they started to attend groups that give them a hope and a future. So where there's scholarship promise, like with the Boy Scouts, I've seen parents, whether it's a mom or a dad, get better jobs.
Oh, that's so important.
Create their own businesses. I'm always like, think big, shoot for the moon. We can always land among the stars. But they've gone on to, because once it's an idea in your own head that it's something that you can do, then what's stopping you, right? And so I've seen, we've had parents go on to start their own businesses and a cleaning service, a translation service, a shoe shine service. So we've seen a lot of different successes.
And then that goes on to be an example for the children. They can see their dad was able to do it, and that means they think they can do it too.
Well, just remember, too, it's like if you have a parent that's feeling better about themselves, making a little bit more money and taking the heat, that stressor, that pinch is gone, then everybody starts to feel better, right? The whole energy in the home changes because we're all feeling better, we're all feeling hopeful. So, it's little tiny seeds of information that just blossoms into bigger. So budgeting, one of the biggest obstacles when you don't have money, how do you budget, right? How do you budget with no money? And when you have just a fixed income, or you don't know what your income is going to be, how do you budget with that? And so I've been able to come up with creative ways that help individuals in their own situations plan and strategize a little bit better. How to shop where you want to, not where you have to. We tend to, as a society, we tend to blame people for the circumstances that they're in. And I'm not sure how useful that is. I'm not
Blaming
sure how
never works.
Right? Like, well, there's a certain amount of expectation that you should have certain amount of money saved before you have children. Well, maybe that's ideal for some people. Maybe that is an idea that hasn't even crossed somebody else's mind. And so without judgment, we just go in and say, what is your situation? What do you need right now? And it's like, well, I have 5 kids and this is what we're living with. Okay, let's work with it. So we get these kids in activities. What kind of an activity can we get each of these children in so that they're doing something they love to do too? I mean, football is really, everybody wants to play football, right? Football and hockey. Well, those are the 2 most expensive sports that I can think of.
Yeah.
So I would like to figure something out with that. How can we make football and hockey more accessible to all children,
Yeah.
right?
And actually nowadays, a lot of parents are saying, no concussions. Find something else other than.
Well, that's fine if that's the family's decision, and that's great, you know, because then mom says no. But what if your kid says you can, but you can't because we don't
That's
have the money? That's
a
completely
whole
different,
nother
yeah.
ballgame. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And we shouldn't. A child should be able to do what he wants to, and not, I mean, within reason, but not have to constantly be worried whether mom and dad can have the money for this to do.
Well, I think another one of the successes that, and we brought it up before, from Kids at Home has been the fact that we've had more than several home ownership families
Oh, yes.
that have gone into
Yes,
home ownership,
that's-
which lends to stability, which is the best gift you can give to your children, is stability, a good home life, and have a home of their own. And so I think that's another thing that we should be really proud of. And I think several have bought homes right in Richfield. Some have chosen others, but it's the family. It's the successful family a stable family is what we're trying to.
So one of the unique things about that program, as Susan was describing, is that there's a limitation that they have to work at least 28 hours a week, but they can work a lot more if they want to.
They can, absolutely.
And then they can save as much money as they possibly can while they're on this program for 3 years. So what they get from the city of Richfield is a constant within that 3-year period. They know exactly what they're getting when they're getting it, to help pay that rent, to take that edge off so that they can save, so that they can work more hours, so that their kids have more opportunity to do a little bit more. And that is just been incredibly, so yeah, we've had some business successes, but they've gone on to buy their own homes. That's been huge.
Oh,
That's
that's
been
really
huge.
proud
We've
of
had
that
parents go on to further their own schooling, which is a huge, I mean, what a great way to role model to your kids.
yeah.
How about how important education is.
Yeah, they see mom or dad sitting down there doing homework.
Yeah. And several have been through the years, have been students, but they were able to still maintain that work requirement. But I know Lynetta talked to me about various folks that were in the program that were students. So yeah, it's such a good program, and there's just so many, like I said, so many components and facets to this. It's like a diamond there. There's so many things, but they all fit together to do they all have the same mission.
Well, and I like that so much. I mean, one counselor sees one kid, another counselor over here. They're never meaning to really seeing what is really going on in the dynamics between the kids and the parents if they never talk. I mean, that kind of blows my mind.
I know, you just think this is everybody should.
Well, you know what? In one family, again, I have to be so careful, but one family in particular, really, they were just stretched out among all of these different professionals, and this poor woman was being given all of these different kinds of directives. Do this, do that, and I just, it's how discouraging, how discouraging.
Well,
and
energy,
so
you don't have the energy either.
Well, you know what? I mean, it just, you don't know what to do. You just throw up your arms and you nod and smile. You just nod and smile. And so we try to bring it all in. We just try to bring it all together for her. That's what we do.
And now your group is trying to grow. The organization is trying to grow and reach more people. How are you going about doing that?
Well, yeah, we're getting a larger demand. I mean, which is exciting but kind of scary too. It's like, wait a second, oh, wait. We would like to do some more contract work within the schools, within families that are struggling. Would like to do some city work. We would like to see more families stay together. So one of my big frustrations is there's a huge issue with foster parenting, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, but you can take a kid that has grown up a certain way and will not understand why that they're separated from their family. They won't ever understand it. And it's a true hardship on that child's self-esteem and their sense of belonging in the world, being ripped from their family, no matter how bad things are in the home. I understand for safety reasons, and I'm not saying anything against it, because I think that sometimes for safety reasons we do need to separate, but we need to have something, an intervention that's a little bit more effective than having somebody that comes in and says, okay, so I've had a unique opportunity to go in with these families, and what I find myself doing is, rather than giving them instruction on how to be a better parent or do parenting differently, is I've actually parented them and role modeled for that person, how nurturing feels, how encouragement feels, and because they've had that experience, then they know how to give it. Takes a little bit longer, but I think that it's more effective than foster parenting, and it costs a lot less.
Yeah, because I imagine we're seeing generational problems in families where parents that are not able to provide for their children probably never received it themselves in terms of support, encouragement, practical help. I mean, be it trying to help them with homework. If you don't get that as a child yourself, you're not going to know necessarily, unless somebody teaches you how to do it for your children. And that's what you're really trying to do for
And very often they'll say it's because of drugs and alcohol and they just won't quit, and I say that drugs and alcohol are only a symptom of the larger problem. And so what I am really good at is going in and figuring out, just like I was way back in business, right, is what is the root problem? Where is it all coming from? And from there, coming up with a strategy that helps people feel better.
Now, do you think that at some point you will go off as your own 501c?
We are.
You are a 501?
We are a 501c. We are a nonprofit.
Okay.
Yep, Advocates for Intentional Living we are contracted now by the city of Richfield.
Okay.
Or partnered with, if you will.
Okay.
But we are our own entity.
Okay.
But we morphed out of. It was my experience through the internship.
At Kids at Home.
At the Kids at Home.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. So then you really are separate then from the Kids at Home.
And fortunate for me, Lynette saw the value of change that I was bringing and said we can really use this in a bigger way.
Okay. So now your families for the support group, they come from the Kids at Home program?
Some of them do. We have
Okay.
families that come, and you know what, it's all walks. So you don't necessarily have to be financially strapped in order to come to this program.
Okay.
You can just
Okay, now that did not
I just want to
understand
have
that.
some parenting information. So we have parents that come from all different communities. The Kids at Home parents, I believe that's part of their Kids at Home
their
requirement.
Yeah.
So they come, but it's every Thursday. It's at the Hope Church.
Okay. So do you have, if the group gets so large, how can you be effective as a facilitator?
We'll
You
have to
break
bring
off?
off. Well, no. We'll have to break off, or we'll have to just introduce another day and maybe another
Okay,
location.
okay.
Right now, we're getting ready to do our Spanish immersion. So it'll be the same night, but a room over. We'll have a Spanish.
Group. Huh?
Yep, a Spanish-speaking
Now, do you have
interpreter.
dinner at the Loaves and Fishes?
I have.
Oh, have you?
Yep,
Okay,
I
good.
have. I usually don't get there in time to.
Now, do the families at all go there for dinner? Or? Great.
Yep, many
Great.
of them do. Many of our working families get there just in the nick of time.
Okay.
You know.
great.
Yeah,
Because they don't get a nutritious meal.
Right. Well, you know what? If I know they're coming, we grab a meal from Fishes and Loaves, and the children are fed right in our room.
Okay, okay.
So we take care of our families.
Well, and I think that's so important too, again, you know, so many of the people that are forced to use the Moles and Fishes, the VEEP services, things like that, food shelves, a lot of people don't understand that at least one parent, and many times both parents, are working full time, but they're working at such low paid jobs that they don't make enough money to be able to provide the necessities, and if they have a health crisis with either them or one of the kids,
It's usually
such
a
pit they can fall into.
It's usually a car crisis, right?
Or a car crisis.
How do you get, you know, gas to get to where you need to go? And you know, when you're on that very, very fixed income, if something goes wrong with your car, whether your clutch goes out or your brakes, or you just need a simple oil change, right? Those sort of maintenances can be very, very expensive. And you know, you have a couple of those things pile up on you and sets you back.
Yeah. And one of the ways you really found out about this group was through the Richfield Foundation.
Well, I known about it through Lynette Chambers, because she is also on the foundation, and we had talked about this. I did not know that you were separate to the extent that you are. I thought it was still just really a part of the kids at home. But when the Advocates for Living had done had applied for a grant
from the
and I
foundation.
chair the grants committee, of course I saw everything, and so and then at our League of Women Voters meeting we started talking about possible shows for Inside the Issues, and I just clicked and I said, you know, we need to get this out any way we can, because it is such a positive thing for the community and for the people here. So yeah, it all kind of is.
Yeah.
It all fits eventually.
I would really like to see other cities at least explore the possibilities of introducing kids at home into their own communities, because it has been such an effective program. I mean, it was really very impressive what they do for these families and how they get these families to get a leg up in the world. Really, just taking enough pressure off to do some rearranging and some planning.
Well, it's got to be two things. First of all, it'll be the resources, if they have a housing fund, but it's also got to be the leadership. It's got to be people
I would
out
agree
there
with
that
you,
would
but I
push.
think that they just need to even have the conversation with Lynette
Even
to say,
have
what
the
do we need to do,
conversation,
and how could we, this is what we have, how could we work with that and introduce it? I mean, I think that they, without just being stopped with those two components, I think that they just need to take it a step further and go, this is what we have, what could we do, and how can we introduce it? Really
and I
getting
think
information.
society really needs to understand that in the long run, if we don't help these families, which helps the kids, we pay for it.
Oh yeah.
Big time. I mean, because kids that are not, families that are not in excess, have kids who are not in excess, and where do they go?
Well, these will be the children that take care of us as older people, right?
Another point.
I got some stake in this game, right?
Yeah.
Very
I want them
big.
to have good jobs. Yeah.
Well, we've only got about 4 minutes left. Anything else you want to say that we haven't covered, maybe?
I don't know, but I really appreciate you having us here and giving us the opportunity to introduce who we are. We are brand new, and but we are taking off like wildfire, and really creating a difference in our communities. And so I would just keep asking for those opportunities to, you know, to keep introducing us or bringing us in and seeing what we can do.
And you're a 401.
501.
501. What am
C.
I was doing taxes today.
Yeah,
I've
right.
got other things on my mind.
We are a
but
nonprofit.
you are pursuing other grants, bigger grants,
Yes.
as well as trying to
Yep.
get
we
your
are.
message across.
Yeah, we are. We are at a very interesting point. Our programs are growing. The people are really coming, and we're needing more professionals. And because the two of us just we can't do it by ourselves. And so, yeah.
You're ready to take off.
We are. We just, we need a couple of things to happen so that we can allow that to grow. Yeah.
And as somebody who advocates so strongly in our community of Richfield for human services, where do you see Richfield needs to go? What else do they need to do? I mean, the need is so great, but where
there's another whole dynamic that we're seeing at Loaves and Fishes, and that is from 2015 to 2016, our senior population went up from 32% to 50%. So we're half of our families, half of our guests are people over 55. So that's looming out there. And
the regulars.
Yeah.
They come in every day for that meal because it's incredibly important.
And it's both financial. I suspect financial is a big part.
And it's an
but the loneliness
right.
also, I think, it's becoming such an issue with
community again, right?
Yeah,
how do we find community?
And they're finding it at the Loaves and Fishes dining sites. We're also finding that we're becoming less diverse. Well, our highest number are Caucasian.
Oh, for heaven's
sake. 63% of our guests are Caucasian.
That really needs to be seen out there amongst the whitey. We tend to categorize people and say, those people are being served. I mean, Loaves and Fishes for those people.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's for us.
It's true. It's for everybody. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's for everybody.
But I mean, the
truly.
demographics are changing. We're getting older and whiter.
I think it's important, though, the medications are just,
sky
they are, and they're not being covered by insurance. And so our seniors are needing to make those kinds of shortcuts, and meals, unfortunately, is to either get out and go, Meals on Wheels, right? Meals on Wheels, yeah. Or stay home and not eat. Yep. Sadly.
So you got another program.
Yeah, have us back. We'll start on that
I've got a minute left, so I got to wrap this up right now. Okay, again, I want to express my appreciation for both of you being on the show. My guests tonight have been Sue Rosenberg, who's a human services advocate for the city of Richfield a long time, and then Tamara again, Weird, who's really starting a new business, serving families in the whole system, I guess, in the totality, not looking at just one segment of what a family experienced, but the whole thing.
The whole family
And
system.
to my guests, thank you for watching Inside the Issues. Good night.